extremism only comes from the Islamic religion and from followers of it. And that is an imported problem for Europe. That's a problem that we've brought in and we're now facing.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Guys, it's actually an epic one, and the title of the video we're going to be doing right now is Douglas Murray leaves Muslim politicians speechless with truth about Islam. And this is really epic, okay? And I can't wait to watch this, so let's do this together, okay?
Our war, and it has become our war. It has become our war, and Elif, you are right and wrong. You are totally wrong to say that there isn't some agreement on this. If you are a Muslim and you follow Islam, you believe that the Quran came from God, and you believe that what is in it is at least very hard to run against. And so now we have a situation in a country like this one, where actually the majority of British Muslims want being gay, like I am, to be made illegal now, okay? So we had a nice liberal agreement in recent decades over being gay, and now you import a community which actually thinks not just that they're not on board with gay marriage, but they think it should be made a lock-upable offence. Where does that come from? It comes from Islam.
Welcome to Douglas Murray Speaks, where we showcase the best of Douglas Murray spitting facts and taking names. Here, at a debate in London, Douglas leaves a Muslim apologist speechless after raising some incontrovertible facts about Islam. The debate took place just 3 days after a group of Muslim terrorists drove a van into pedestrians on London Bridge, then went on a rampage with machetes, killing 8 people, including 4 unarmed police officers and viciously injuring 48. But, according to Douglas's Muslim opponent, the real problem isn't Islamic extremism. It's the rise of populism in the West. Douglas takes her to task and destroys her arguments in the process.
Many populist demagogues, and I think we need to use this word, they are saying to the people, you know what, these people, the elite, they're always getting it wrong. And you are the pure people, you just need to trust your guts, your instincts. You don't need these intellectuals.
Yeah. It's possible as well that the publics of Europe have seen a political class fail to get a grasp of very major things or even talk about them, and that the public have noticed facts, and that it's not that there's a meta-narrative that's going around. There are just facts. There are things that we can see with our eyes. There are things that are clear to us which politicians daren't tread on. And I've had this experience throughout my life. I never forget the time many years ago, I think when France first banned the headscarf. I've told this story before, of a Labour MP in a studio with me discussing the rights and wrongs of this, and spent the whole time with me. An Iranian friend of mine was also there, explaining why we were fascist and Islamophobic and so on for defending the French Republic's verdict on the headscarf. And we came out, and this Labour MP patted me on the back and said, "Never forget, Douglas, we're all with you."
Back to Douglas in a sec. As Douglas points out, accusations of populism are just a cheap smear tactic designed to attack normal, everyday people brave enough to speak up, and are really an indictment of the disconnected, clueless elite. The question is, why does the elite refuse to see and do anything about the problems staring them in the face? Is it political correctness or something more sinister? Next, Douglas highlights some of the worst problems confronting us right now, which politicians seem unable or outright unwilling to tackle.
None of our politicians, by the way, and there's no great conspiracy about this, nobody expected it. If you'd have said to a politician in the 1990s, in the early years of the 2000s, Europe is going to be racked by blasphemy debates, they'd say, "What are you talking about? When did the Spanish Inquisition return?" And then we all became used to it, that there were certain things you couldn't do that were actually blasphemy in a country like this and were punishable effectively by death, by a death sentence. We all accepted that. And now we're told we have to accept the terrorism. Well, maybe we do have to accept the terrorism as part of our life, but the publics have a right to be looking at the politicians and saying, "Look, this is a problem you brought in." It's not...
We'll be back soon with Douglas. Douglas is absolutely right here. The issues facing Western countries are of a kind we haven't had to deal with for centuries, if ever. It's almost like we've been transported back in time. Can we as citizens ever get used to this situation? Do we just have to accept sporadic outbreaks of Islamic terrorism as part of life in the 21st century? In our next clip, Douglas lambasts the politicians who created this problem and seem wholly unconcerned about the consequences.
And as for the, as it were, would it matter if 1 in 1 million became a suicide bomber? Again, it's a cost-benefit analysis, isn't it? As long as you're not the one standing outside the wine bar in Ansbach when the suicide bomber goes off, it might be okay for you. It might be okay, and it seems to be for most people in our political parties in Britain, it might be okay for you to not worry about this identity question, not worry about the numbers, but you've just got to hope your kids don't like Ariana Grande and go on the wrong night. But I think the cost-benefit analysis of this has to be weighed up, and if you do think that, then say it. Say, we'll take a suicide bombing every now and then. We'll take the stabbings every now and then. Sure.
Back to Douglas in a sec. The elite, living in their sheltered, pampered bubbles, are rarely affected by the changes they've wrought, and see terrorist attacks as just more news events they can use for political posturing. Douglas here brings up the Manchester Arena bombing, in which Muslim suicide bomber Salman Abedi blew himself up at an Ariana Grande concert, killing 22 people and injuring over 1,000. If a politician's child, rather than yours or mine, had been on the list of the dead, would they perhaps take the problem more seriously? Next, Douglas catches his Muslim opponent engaging in the all-too-common tactic of diverting the discussion away from the real problems to trivial, headline-grabbing details.
We should definitely monitor what people are saying in the mosques, but for God's sake, chasing women who are just wearing their burkinis on the beach, that is not the way forward. And it's even more dangerous.
Well, sorry, Elif, but the burkini ban is a massive diversion. A massive diversion. It was a big mistake for the French state when that happened, I agree, but this is not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that just up the road, again, a few days ago, 3 men with machetes went through a London street hacking at people saying this is for Allah. Okay? That's our problem. And this is always the way with this. We always have diversions, and some of these diversions we bring upon ourselves.
We'll be returning to Douglas shortly. As Douglas rightly says, the left-wing media much prefer talking about the poor plight of Muslim females banned from wearing burqas to the beach than the actual problem of Muslim terrorism. Are they just too scared of Muslim reprisals if they talk about it? Or do they in fact side with those opposed to Western civilization? Thankfully, Douglas is no coward and goes straight to the heart of the issue. The real-world consequences of Islamic extremism playing out in the West as we speak. In our next clip, Douglas pulls the veil back to look at what's driving our government's capitulation to these forces of evil.
Look, all of this stuff is part of the point of my book is to try to look at the deeper things underneath this. Our continent is racked by guilt, it's racked by tiredness, existential exhaustion, a whole range of things that mean we are very vulnerable to anyone who comes along and says it's our fault. We're very vulnerable to it, and it's, I have to say, high time we snapped out of it. When I was last on the Greek islands, the reception islands of the camps where migrants were coming in, I was speaking to people from such a wide range of countries. Bangladesh, for instance. What's this country done to Bangladesh recently that should be a reason for us to be continuing to take in people from that country? And what's your solution if people who think that? You can't solve Syria. What are you going to do to solve Eritrea? And you think that in the meantime, we have to continue the current wave of migration? It's madness.
Madness indeed. Back to Douglas soon. Is it really our responsibility to take in wave after wave of immigrants from Muslim countries? I'm sure every single person living in poor countries like Bangladesh would jump at the chance of moving to Western Europe, where they can claim fat benefit checks and live in government-funded housing. But Western Europe is a relatively small place and simply can't take in every poor person from around the planet, especially those whose religion and way of life go against everything the West stands for. Finally, Douglas offers us the only solution possible at this moment, and a horrifying example of the consequences that await us if we don't act.
Are you suggesting these 2 or 3 million British citizens somehow have to now leave the country?
No, of course not. Of course.
So what are you suggesting?
The first thing is you admit this issue and you slow down or stop the flow. The obvious thing, if you've got a problem, admit to it and slow the flow. Okay? The second thing is, obviously, you try to work on the people you have here. Obviously. You can't...
What does work on mean?
Well, you hope that over many, many generations things will change. Of course, the problem we all have is a situation like the case of Salman Abedi. This country gave his parents asylum. They fled from Libya. We gave his parents asylum. Well, now we're working out what his parents actually believed. But actually, then 2 weeks ago, their son goes into a Manchester arena and blows up 22 people, one for every year of life this country gave him.
Douglas is spot on. If politicians had the foresight or the will, they could turn things around through simple, actionable policies. Stop Western Europe turning into a breeding ground for Islamic terrorism and let us reclaim the traditional values that made the West great. Otherwise, our future and our children's future hang fatefully in the balance. If you enjoy...
Oh yes, I strongly agree. But I know that a lot of people actually shy away from this kind of topic. But sometimes it's actually good for us to bring it back and have a discussions about it. So I really strongly agree. And I just feel like, so many people shy away from this kind of conversation because they don't want backlash, they don't want people to come for them. But I just feel like the space should be okay for everyone to be able to voice out their own opinion, voice out their own opinion. And that's why we have this comment section. The video start from the comment section where you share your opinion. At the same time, we have to be very respectful, and try to make the space very good and very okay for everyone. There should be a way where every other person should be able to voice out his or her opinion regardless of anything. That shouldn't, there should I love that kind of space, and that's why I strongly agree with them. But anyway, guys, what do you guys think about this video? Let's do the discussions on the comment section. Thank you so much. I'll wait you for another one. Bye.